Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of the next issue. This week we start our, horrific adventures going towards Halloween, and this year instead of doing an epic battle like last year's Blackest Night versus the Marvel Zombies, I figured this October I would go over some of the creepiest, scariest villains in comics that have, ever been created. Now, to some, a lot of people are going to, kind of backpedal, be like, well, I think some of the scariest villains you can see in comics, honestly, are, things like the Joker. If you were to walk down the street and bump into the face of the Red Skull or something like that. But now I'm talking about villains, bad guys that really, the whole point of them is fear, or not even that's the point of them, but what they've done, what they represent, should bring about just the absolute biggest dread you could ever have. And with that, I'm going to start this week off with one that, as I just said, technically a lot of them are going to be, a lot of villains you can think of are going to be, well, duh, of course there's a Halloween villain. So I figured I'd go ahead and step out there with the most obvious one, and that would be Batman's villain, the Scarecrow. What other way to start off than the one comic book villain who's best well known with fear, and that being Dr. Jonathan Crane. Now, this villain has always been, out of Batman's rogues gallery, I won't say he's not really been like one of the big names. Everyone knows him, and he's been around since the golden age of comics, even though he didn't really get popular till the silver age. But he's been kind of like the B-list. You have the A-list, and then you got the B-list, you got the Joker and the Penguin and Catwoman, who basically make up the definitive A-list, and then you've got like the I won't really say the second rate, but the B-list villains that are not as, they're there, but and they're, they're big names, but they're still not, end of the world big, or haven't always been. Scarecrow, Man-Bat, some of those being some of them. But in recent years, especially due to the Arkham games, Scarecrow has definitely picked up in popularity. Well played on the story in the Arkham games to show that it took the Joker being taken out of the picture before Scarecrow became such a big, serious name at that point. You got to think that sometimes the Joker kind of takes away from Scarecrow's thing there, since the Joker instills fear through chaos, where Scarecrow's just obsessed with fear in general. Now, the thing about Scarecrow, though, is once again, he uses a similar MO in his fear toxin, his fear gas, similar to Joker's laughing gas. In some way, I mean, Joker's laughing gas is instilled to kill you in laughter. Scarecrow's fear toxin isn't really meant to kill you, just drive you nuts with your own fears. But, both of them using a special kind of gas to affect you in different ways. But Scarecrow's more obsessed, since he is a doctor, of seeing your reactions. In some cases, very rare cases, he felt he was doing the right thing by instilling this fear in you with his toxin to try and make people better by getting them over their fears, but basically forcing them to confront their fear in just the worst way possible, where you have no choice, and it's like the worst case scenario of your fear. Where sometimes the doctor will be like, well, if you're scared of spiders, just go up and look at a spider on, the carport and then step on it, because you're bigger than it. But, for Crane, being a little bit more out of his mind than your standard doctor, it was more along the lines of, here I'm going to throw this gas in your face, and you have to confront this 20-foot tall spider, and you need to be able to defeat this to show you're better than spiders, and that's just a little much. But the thing about Scarecrow is he's always been the villain that, while he's not great in combat, he's not the strongest or the fastest, Batman always has a way of having trouble with him. Even the catch is, and on several occasions, Batman has proven he's got antidotes of all kinds to stop Scarecrow's toxin. Unlike the Joker, who very rarely modifies his toxin very much, Scarecrow's always trying to make his better and better and better. So Batman's always having to stay on top of his game. And even there are many times where even when he does have the antidote, all it takes is Scarecrow to be in the right place, the right time, and the right setup to get that utility belt off of him, gas him from around the corner. It's Batman has to really have enough backup plans to not get hit with it. Now, in some cases, Batman's been able to get through the fear toxin and take it and handle it. But with Crane developing more potent and worse toxins all the time, Bruce's immune system is not always the key here. Sometimes it'll buy him some extra moments, but in several books of the comics, it's just not enough. But and that's the thing is for Scarecrow, it's all about fear. He's addicted to fear. In the New 52, he got actually before the New 52 during Blackest Night, he got to where he had been around his fear toxin so much he was immune to fear, all except for Batman, which is actually a call out to his Golden Age, I believe his Golden Age or Silver Age backstory, where the only thing he was scared of originally was bats, which he was a psychologist, and but he was also a professor. So he's a psychologist working at Arkham, but at one point he was also a professor of phobias at and in Gotham, and so he's his obsession with fear has always been there for one reason or another in his backstories, and he's just it's just this crazy thing because I mean it's the just to think how horrific this villain could be, this guy could be, is the fact that he's a professor, he's a doctor obsessed with fear, and comes up with this crazy gas that makes you hallucinate. These are not made up things here. I mean, the character's made up, but one thing that always makes Batman villains the scariest is there are so many different ways that these villains could be that way in real life, that these villains could, to some degree, exist. Your college professor, if you're taking psychology right now, depending on how well you truly know this guy, could be hiding a similar obsession and waiting to experiment on you with fear. He could be following you around campus or even off. Not saying he would be dressed as a Scarecrow, but these are the things that make this such a horrific villain, such a scary villain. Is he could be anybody that you see in your life like that. Now, branching out, my favorite version of this extremely scary villain is going to have to be from Blackest Night, when he was at his most powerful, and he got a hold of a power ring that basically lets him feel and is powered by fear. Now, you want to talk about a villain that gets overpowered really quickly. You take someone who's completely obsessed with something and give him a weapon that's powered by the one thing he's obsessed with. The one thing I really, personally, this is my own idea I've thought about, I really wish they'd do it, is one thing I really like the New 52 has done is kind of branch out and let villains that would normally be under one book or one hero branch out and see how they do with other heroes. Kind of like the Riddler and the Flash and things like that, but in Dr. Hammond in the Superman books early on in New 52. And I always thought it'd be great since Blackest Night, especially because they've referenced it in New 52 now, if Scarecrow got to graduate to a Green Lantern villain. Because nobody knows fear like him. And I'm sorry, I'm going to get a lot of backlash for this, but not even Sinestro. Sinestro respects fear, and he commands fear, and he thinks, that... But he doesn't have fear. He uses fear to gain respect, to gain dominance. He uses it as a tool. He doesn't truly know what fear is. And I honestly believe a good storyline where Scarecrow, gets the gets the yellow ring back and actually manages to get into space before anyone can take it from him, and really develop his skills with this yellow ring. I really think it would be awesome to see a storyline of Scarecrow taking over the Sinestro Corps and showing Sinestro that he doesn't know fear like Scarecrow does. Now, given with some of the changes they made in the New 52, it wouldn't be as good as it was during Blackest Night. Scarecrow's not quite 100% what he was back then. But, personally in my eyes, I think this would be an awesome villain. And while it takes away from the creepiness of Scarecrow to think this is somebody that you could be leaving Walmart and get kidnapped, and next thing you know you're locked in a dungeon being experimented on with the spear gas, to turning him into more of a cosmic villain, he's still a cosmic villain powered by fear. And while that becomes really comic booky and not as believable, thus it kind of takes a little bit of the fear away, that's still pretty scary to actually think about, especially for any of you guys out there that might believe or not believe in whatever's out there past our planet and our solar system and stuff. I'm not saying there's Green Lantern rings or anything like that, but to think about the idea that there could be something out there similar to this and somebody gets a hold of it. It's kind of like going into Marvel for a minute here, the Carnage symbiote. You've got this alien parasite that latches onto a serial killer, and all of a sudden he's amplified even more so. It's a similar thing there. It goes into the realm of not as believable, but it doesn't make it any less scary to, when you're looking at a comic book, and yes, this is animated and it's not drawn to look exactly like real people, to remember that these are stories about characters that is supposed to be real people. And that's kind of my challenge to you going into Halloween month here. Pick up a good book with Scarecrow in it, and just to really throw it out there, don't make it Blackest Night. Let's take the cosmic out of it. Get you an old school Scarecrow story. Sit down late at night, and as you're reading it, don't think about, oh man, this is a great comic book. Read it as if these characters are real. This is something that could be happening right now in the real world to you. That right there for Scarecrow is I think is a really good homage to him. But that's going to be it for me today, and I'll have our next surprise villain next week for the next issue.